Should I tell my mom that my stepdad has 5 sugar babies? Here's a little family history. My mom and my real dad got divorced when I was 12, and I'm now 19. I've lived with my mom this whole time, and I see my dad every single weekend. A year ago, my mom decided to start dating, and she signed up to a couple of dating apps. She went on a few dates and finally met this one guy. She went on a few dates with him and found out that he's very rich, and he also love bombed her. That was a huge red flag for me. My mom told me that he would compliment her all the time and tell her that he missed her after like the second date. After their third date, my mom came home crying. She told me he was trying to get physical with her and she didn't want him to. And apparently he was very pushy about it. I got really angry and I asked my mom not to see him again. But guess what? This guy shows up to her house the following day. When I opened the door, he was wearing a Rolex, Gucci belt and shoes, and he was holding a bunch of roses. He apologized to my mom and asked her to make it up to her. And my mom accepted. But I got a really bad feeling from him. After 2 more dates, he asked her to be his girlfriend and my mom said yes. But this is when things get really scary. He would text her every single hour asking her where she was and who she was with. Huge red flag. But my mom thought this meant he loved her. A month later, he asked her to marry him. After a full month of dating, he asked her to marry him and she said yes. She came home with a big diamond ring and I started to cry. I begged her not to get married, but she said that she loved him. And to celebrate, he asked me and my mom if we wanted to go to dinner. So I decided to ask him a few questions. He took us to a really fancy restaurant, of course. And he gave my mom and I matching Tiffany bracelets. So I asked him why he wasn't married yet. He said he was waiting for the right woman. I also told him that I didn't like how controlling he was with my mom. He promised that he would change that. Of course, my mom was super angry with me, but I didn't care. I asked him if he had any social media and he said no. But something told me he was lying. After the dinner, I got home and spent 3 hours looking for him on Instagram. And I finally found his account. I showed it to my mom and she told me that she didn't care and to stop searching for him. She told me that she trusted him. So I did further investigating. I noticed 2 things. Only women followed him and he only followed women. So I DM'd some of the girls that followed him. Luckily, one of them got back to me and confessed to me that she was his sugar baby. And she also told me that he had 4 more sugar babies. She gave me all their names and I messaged every single one. And it turns out one of them is pregnant. I was finally able to speak to all the sugar babies on Instagram. And one of them told me that she was pregnant. I asked her how they met and she said through a dating app. Just like how we met my mom. By the way, I forgot to mention, my mom is 35 and he's 53. So he's a lot older than her. The same girl also told me that he would give her $7,000 a month and that he would take her on trips and that apparently he had a girl for every single day of the week. She was his Monday. Of course, this girl begged me not to tell my mom anything. And I did feel bad for her. She clearly depended on him financially and she even might be pregnant. So I wasn't about to tell my mom who told us the information. So here's what I did. I took screenshots of his Instagram and of his active profiles on dating apps. I showed everything to my mom, but she told me she didn't care and that there was probably a logical explanation. And they did end up getting married. The wedding was small but really nice, and they went on their honeymoon. Part of me didn't want to just ruin my mom's life by telling her everything, and also part of me didn't want to jeopardize the other girl. So I kept quiet about it. So on the days where I didn't have school, I decided to start following him. I followed him for 3 days, and I finally was able to get a picture of him with another girl. Of course, this was one of his sugar babies. I tried to contact this girl on Instagram, but she wouldn't message me back. I had all the evidence ready to show my mom, but one day she shows me a pregnancy test and it's positive. So now this guy got my mom and his sugar baby pregnant. My mom and him moved into the new house that he had built for them. It's really beautiful. Her life with him is really nice, aside from the fact that he's a cheater. Should I tell my mom or should I keep this to myself? I don't want to ruin my mom's life, but I don't want her to get hurt. What should I do?
My 28 male, girlfriend 26 female broke my PS4 and doesn't understand why I'm so upset. I don't really know where to go from here. So, some background. During quarantine, I've been playing my PS4 games a lot more. I was able to finish up some stories and complete some big games in my free time in the last few months. It was a great escape for me. My girlfriend Liz never got it fully but understood I liked playing it and it made me happy. I told her I was really looking forward to the PS5 and was hoping to get one soon. I missed out on the pre-order and the initial shipping wave, so I got a bit sad for a while but knew I would eventually get one when the craze settled down, whether it was next year or the year after. Her friend Kat also knew of this because her boyfriend was looking forward to the new Xbox. This is what happened today. I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, finishing up some last achievements when Liz came into the room with Kat. I said, "Hey babe, how was your day?" And without warning, she pulled the PS4 out of the wall and smashed it on the ground. She then took a hammer and smashed whatever pieces were left. This happened within 20 to 30 seconds. I just looked at her shocked. I asked, "What happened? Why did you do that? Did I do something to make you mad?" This is when I noticed Kat was recording everything with her phone. Liz walks away and then comes back and shows me a PS5 box. I still don't react and she says, "Merry early Christmas." I just walk out of the room and go to the bedroom and lock the door. She probably saw this shit on TikTok and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna surprise my boyfriend with a PS5 and smash his old one." Liz comes knocking an hour later and asks, "What's wrong? I thought you wanted the PS5. I told her I couldn't even think about that because she literally just destroyed a part of my life that I've created over the last 5 years. I explained to her that she just ruined hundreds of hours of gameplay and saves that I had built up. Liz just said, "Well, can't you just do it again?" This was when I walked out and left the apartment. I came back a couple of hours later with Kat and Liz now both showing off the PS5 to me. Kat says, "Look, Liz worked really hard to get you this. We just wanted to make you happy." I asked Kat why she was recording. She says that some person on TikTok or Instagram did the same thing to their boyfriend and they were happy. Apparently, that's where they got the idea from. A girlfriend came in and broke the PS4 and then gave them a PS5 and everyone cheered or something. I still can't believe it. I told Kat a lot of my life was in that PS4 and now it's all gone. Now Kat is calling me ungrateful and her boyfriend liked the Xbox she gave him. I asked her if she destroyed his old Xbox. She said no and that she just gave it to him gift wrapped. I asked why wasn't I given the same treatment and it was because they saw the video yesterday and got the idea to recreate it. I told Liz I do appreciate the gift but that she needs to know she broke a part of me that has been built over the years. It sounds stupid but I was really proud of my collection. Liz then says, "Well, why can't you just do it on the new PlayStation?" I told her I could but it would take a lot of time and effort that I may not want to put in again. She just brushed it off and said, "Well, you can play your new games anyway, they are probably better." At this point, I left and went to a friend's house where I'm writing this now late at night. I really don't care about the PS5 and I'm mad that an effing viral video made all this happen. What the F is wrong with people where they think destroying someone's personal property is funny? They tried showing me the video but I'm not watching that shit. Liz and I have had a great relationship to this point. We have been together for 4 years and this is the only major issue that has come up. Some might think it's just a video game and that I can get past this, but I don't know if I can. It was the fact that after it, she didn't seem to know why or care to know why I'm so upset. I've never had this feeling before and really don't know how to proceed here.
Imagine your father asking you to help him install a cellar door only to be locked inside by him for the next 24 years of your life. Elizabeth Fritzl was freshly 18 and ready to leave the nest when one day in 1984, her father, Joseph Fritzl, asked her to help him install the door in the basement of their home in Austria. Unaware of his horrific intentions, Elizabeth obliged. As they finished and she was heading out, he suddenly covered her face in a cloth soaked in ether. For the next 24 years, Elizabeth had to endure suffering that no one could fathom. Joseph convinced his wife, other children, and their neighbors that Elizabeth ran away and joined some religious cult. They believed it because she had previously run away and stayed with a friend for 20 days when she was 15 to get away from her father's abuse, which started when she was 11. Police found her after those 20 days and brought her back home. If it wasn't terrible enough being forced to endure the blazing summers and catching rats with her bare hands, she was also repeatedly abused by her own father over the years of captivity. Initially, he tied her up with an iron chain so that she could barely move, but it caused trouble during the horrendous activities he put her through, and he removed it months later. For the first 5 years in the basement, she was all alone. He assaulted her at least 3,000 times in those 24 years, which resulted in her birthing 7 children. She gave birth to all her children with no medical help for almost 12 years. Joseph provided her with just a disinfectant, a dirty pair of scissors, and a book on childbirth. One of her children died prematurely due to difficulty breathing just 3 days after his birth in 1996. When the baby started to come, Elizabeth tried to end it all, but looking at her kids, she had purpose to live after the initial years of being alone. Joseph held control over her by threatening to end the lives of her and her children if they ever tried to escape. He would also turn off the lights in the basement for days on end so that she'd be in complete darkness. 3 of her children were in the basement with her, while the other 3 mysteriously appeared on the doorstep of Joseph and Rosemary, Elizabeth's mother, as per his planning. He doctored letters to Rosemary from Elizabeth saying that she was well but couldn't take care of the children. One day, Elizabeth's oldest daughter, Kirsten, who was 19 at the time, became extremely ill and needed immediate hospitalization. This is when Elizabeth pleaded with her father to get Kirsten medical attention. Joseph Fritzl, who had never shown mercy in those 24 years, surprisingly took Kirsten to the hospital. This is when things took a turn. Crime Fanatic Friday, Part 2, the girl enslaved in the basement for 24 years by her own father. When Elizabeth's daughter, Kirsten, arrived at the hospital, the doctors who were attending her became deeply suspicious by her condition. They later alerted police officials who put an appeal in the media and broadcasted repeatedly for Kirsten's mother to come forward with necessary information if they want to save her life. Little did they know, Elizabeth Fritzl, Kirsten's mother, was locked in the basement she had lived in for 24 years, watching the broadcast over and over with her 2 other children. This is when Elizabeth begged her father, Joseph Fritzl, to let her go. He was growing old and saw his powers waning, finding it difficult to maintain both families. He hatched a plan on how to get rid of all of this without too many questions being asked and told some stories to the hospital staff when he took Elizabeth to see Kirsten. However, they didn't believe his stories and police questioned Elizabeth in a separate room of the hospital. She recounted the last 24 years being held prisoner by her father, assaulted, beaten, and birthing 7 children by him. In 2009, Joseph Fritzl was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. He suffers from dementia now and was said to be ill in 2019. Elizabeth and her 3 children who were raised by her parents were reunited. They were all given support from a local psychiatric center to help with their deep traumas. She eventually moved to a fortress in a remote Austrian village with her children and changed her name. It has steel fencing, video cameras, CCTV, operated gates, and trees shielding the windows. Her children are now all adults that range in age from 20 to 35. Initially, Elizabeth wanted nothing to do with her mother, Rosemary, thinking that she was part of Joseph's plan and that there was no way she didn't know the truth. But years later, they became friends and see each other often. In 2019, it was reported that Elizabeth found love with her bodyguard. Apparently, everyone from the beginning could see how secure she felt with him.
Am I the asshole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date? My son, 23, and his wife just had a baby boy. Everyone is overjoyed and excited, but there have been some issues that have risen recently. When my daughter-in-law was pregnant, I suggested that I host a welcoming party for my grandson right after she gets discharged from the hospital. I've made arrangements and even emptied a room for them to stay in, but for some reason, she was against it and said she'd rather spend the first few weeks at home with her newborn. Not only that, but she said no to the welcoming party. My husband and I talked to my son, and he said, we'll see. But just a couple days ago, we found out that my daughter-in-law had given birth 2 weeks ago, and no one knew about it. My nephew told me, and I immediately called my son. He confirmed it. He and his wife lied, then hid the date of birth from the family. I told him this was not acceptable. Lying just because they didn't want a welcoming party and love and support being given from family. I told him I was disappointed because, for one, he ruined our welcoming for our grandbaby, and also I invited family members and they're all rightfully disappointed as well. He said it was his last resort after I kept pushing and made his wife uncomfortable, but that was not appreciated because we were just trying to celebrate the new family member in a proper manner. We had an argument and he ended the call upon saying I ruined his joy for his newborn. My husband started texting him since he stopped replying to our phone calls and is now threatening to block my nephew for tattling. But I think that my nephew was decent enough to inform the family. Otherwise, God knows how long my son and his wife were just going to hide their son just to keep us at arm's length. We've always been kind and welcoming to my daughter-in-law and her family. I don't know why she would do this and disrespect the family like that. On the other hand, some family members see it as a justified action because we insisted on the party. So, am I the asshole for telling my son I was disappointed after he and his wife lied about my grandson's birth date?
Am I the asshole for not letting my sister-in-law wear my wedding dress? My 28 female husband, 30 male, have been married for almost 6 years now. At the time of our engagement, neither of us had much money, so there was no way I could afford the wedding dress that I wanted to wear. Thankfully for me, my mother is something of a seamstress and offered to help me make my dream dress. We spent over a year finding the pattern, picking the fabrics, and making my beautiful wedding dress completely from scratch. It's the first big project I've ever sewn, so I'm quite proud of it. Making it also brought me closer to my mother, as the whole project was some sort of bonding experience. It also holds a lot of additional sentimental value as my dad passed away while we were making it, so I sewed a shaped heart cutout of one of his shirts into the lining of the dress in order to keep him with me on my big day. This dress not only brought me closer to my husband, but my family too. It means so much to me. My sister-in-law, 23 female, just got engaged recently and is in a similar situation with her wedding. She just got out of college and started working as a teacher. Between her loans and a relatively low salary, she doesn't have much money to pay for her wedding. Dress shopping has been a bit stressful for her, as all the dresses that fit her taste are just so far out of her budget. This all leads up to Tuesday morning when she called my husband and asked if I would be willing to let her borrow my dress. She mentioned that it could be her something borrowed. My husband said that he would have to ask me first because it wasn't his to loan out. His sister told him that it wouldn't be a problem and I'd barely miss it as it was sitting in a box anyway. He still said he would have to ask me and forgot about it. He finished his work and picked me up from my job, and we came home to his little sister trying on my wedding dress and his mom clipping it in the back to fit her better. Seeing somebody else in my dress totally blindsided me. I was stunned and asked what they were doing, and my mother-in-law said that they were planning alterations since my sister-in-law is much smaller than me. I told them that there would be no way that I'd be loaning my dress to anyone. It not only represents my love to my husband, but the bond with some family members as well. This escalated into an argument that ended in my mother-in-law calling me a selfish bitch and leaving with my sister-in-law. My husband thankfully grabbed the dress during the argument so that they didn't grab it when they left. I was really upset, but thought about it after I had some time to calm down. I don't have any uses of my dress, and I do love my sister-in-law. I feel like I maybe overreacted and shut them down too quickly. Am I the asshole?
So I found my husband on our kitchen floor and tried to resuscitate him on the phone with 911 until the paramedics arrived. I now know that while I was doing this, he was already gone, and that's a traumatizing experience to say the least. So you'd think that I would need a lot of time off work, right? At the time, I was still a full-time voice actor and podcaster, which meant I had a lot of contractual obligations that I needed to fulfill, and there is no paid time off option when you're a freelancer. I still had bills to pay, rent was still due, and there was nobody in my life who was going to readily help me with that. I got very, very lucky because the podcasting community that I'm a part of raised about a week's worth of wages for me. So I was able to take about a week off. And during that week that I took off, I lost a lot of clients. And I've lost clients since that point. I still struggle to retain clients because I have PTSD and it's made life very, very difficult. My memory is not great anymore. I make a lot of typos, I make a lot of mistakes in my work, and I drop the ball more than I'm happy with. But I keep working, I keep trying my best because I have to. I don't live somewhere where there are social safety nets. I was constantly at risk of homelessness until about a year and a half ago when those same podcasters came together and held this huge fundraiser for me so I could take a few months to get back up on my feet again. And then about a year ago, I met the person who I call my platonic life partner and my roommate, and moving in with her absolutely changed my life. It still scares me to think that the only reason that I have not experienced homelessness is because I got really, really lucky. Until I met my platonic life partner, I did not have any familial safety nets, and I was raised to not ask for help and to not accept help. That is one of the reasons why I started my nonprofit, and it's one of the reasons I am so passionate about devoting most of my time to the organization's mission. I don't want anybody to go through what I went through and to rely on getting lucky.